there was a lot of naivete. Do you think that in those days the stars, the co-stars, really did fall in love with each other on the movie set, or was that just played up by the studio? I mean, did Lana Turner really fall in love with Robert Taylor, or were she and Ava? I mean, was it just that they were so into it? What was that
What
about?
you had two of the most beautiful people in the world in close proximity, and certainly they weren't asexual. And Bob was a dear friend of mine, and I knew Lana very well. And the answer is quite simplistic. You just take two of anything that are pretty special, and male, female, and you're going to find an attraction. If you don't find an attraction, there's something desperately wrong with you. And Lana, my God, and she was piquant, and she was tempting, and had a beautiful body, and Bob Taylor was probably the handsomest man in motion pictures, so I tried to find an answer to that one. It's kind of simple as far as I'm concerned. It was just that, and there is that cleavage line. It's people always say, do you have to be crazy to be an actor, or does being an actor make you crazy? Or have you got a leg up being a little bit weird? Because already you can play those extracurricular emotions. So when you get into love scenes and stuff, which in many cases are not terribly sexy because you have to watch where you put your feet, and the little story about look out, your elbows showing. But beyond that, when you kiss a pretty girl for a long time, I don't know, you gotta be, I don't see any question as to the fact that they just simplistically were sexy, handsome people who were kissing and doing things on camera that they maybe do at home too. I don't know. I get the answer, get the hook out, and get me off of this question.
But the reason I say that is that the studios would do that. They'd say, Turner and Taylor, hotter than hot.
Yeah,
Right?
sure.
So it was all played up in the
They're
publicity
dynamite.
too. They're dynamite together, you know.
Sure,
And then
sure.
of course the extension of the Strickland group. You know, where's Barbara Stanwyck? I mean, they had a field day. You know, and then at night, oh, they might have been caught out somewhere. Now today, everything is, oh yes, I'm in all these love scenes, but my husband's there too, and it's almost like, oh no, we're just kind of friends. We play cards together. But then it seemed as though people really threw themselves into it, whether they were young, fired up by the studio. I don't know, but you don't see that today. You don't see that portrayed. That Tom Hanks is like hotter than ever with, so you know, you don't see that. You see Tom Hanks, oh, out with his wife. You know, it's almost like this contradiction of what you were saying that would be very obvious, right? That if people are really going to get their emotions involved with someone else, you know. But it seemed as though in the 40s and the 50s they bought into the whole thing. I mean, there were these great stories about how the two studio heads didn't want Lana Turner in a movie with Tyrone Power, even though they were involved and everything else, because they couldn't agree on the money. Wait a minute, he's going to take, you know, because one owned Tyrone Power, one, but all the romance. I mean, it seems as though women, it was just.
There were dictums laid down too by Luella and Hedda. You know, look what happened to the Rossellini thing in Bergman. In this day and age, nobody. In fact, as you know, there are many young ladies and who have children with no husbands and stuff. But that was a cause célèbre. My God, they tried to run Bergman out of the business, if you remember. And Rossellini was the heavy of all time because she had an illegitimate child or something. So the time frame then was much more innocent, much more sort of, you know, it's hard to describe except that it was not the way it is now. Now everything is realism, you know. Where's the money? Then it was a kind of a combination of play acting and charades and Grimm's fairy tales and a lot of other stuff like that. And also value judgments. Like Bill Holden was a dear friend of mine. And they got on him because he went to Europe and did movies over there. Well, Bill was William Beadle when he first started, and he didn't have any money, and he wanted, everybody had that insecurity. It gave him a kind of a leg up to think I can make some money and keep some over there. But if you'd seen what they did to him, you know, they blasted him, Hedda Hopper and Luella, because they said, you're un-American and all that stuff. Now, the reason I bring this up is because it was a strange time. It was not what you would call a realistic time. Now today you have realism. Don't have as much fun, But the judgments made then were really kind of off the wall and weird. So
And they would fix you up. I mean, it was an era where movie stars married other movie stars, and that was even better for the studio because then they could go home and put them in the magazines, right? So the studios would promote that, right? They'd fix states up.
that was always a part of it. Because
And after all, who else were you going to meet if you worked 6 days a week?
but you'd look out of the corner of your eye to see if the cameras were there. And the guys on the camera would play games too, you know. When you weren't terribly well known and weren't doing terribly well, they had safety slides on the cameras. You know, if the safety slide was in and you flashed a bulb, nothing happened on film. So what the guys would do, so you wouldn't feel as if they were kind of brushing you off and everything else. Hey, come here, how good to see you, Bob. You'd walk in, if you hadn't done a picture in a year, and they'd flip the flash would go off, and as I'd walk by, I said, "You forgot the safety slide, Harry." They didn't want to waste the film. They would flash a bulb to make you feel good. That's a strange one. Then, of course, something happens again, and then all of a sudden you get the picture, and you're back in the running again, and then, of course, the safety slides come out, and everything's wonderful. But that's the profession. It's like one of those horse races where you put the ball, and the horses go like this at the beach, you know. It's